Hello again and welcome. Thank you for tuning in today. So, I wanted to talk more about light and also ask how many of you actually signed up with the CRD challenge, the 21-day challenge that started on Sunday, October 20th. I did, and I'm really enjoying the educational tools that they have. If you haven't had a chance to sign up, I will put that link in the show notes again. And it's never too late. It's just once a week they drop uh, some educational things you can read through, and you can always revisit them too. It's through school.com, but when you sign up on the link that I put down below, you'll be able to see, they'll walk you through how to use that. But real quick, let's just go over some of the tips that they gave at the end of the education for this week. They were talking about circadian rhythm, of course, and that chronobiology that we talked about. And so their tips are to gather between 10 to 30 minutes of unfiltered morning sunlight. And that's because those are where all the red and infrared light waves that are really important for generating energy and the right kind of water in our mitochondria. And then the second tip that they had was also gather around 10 minutes of natural evening light. Like as the sun is setting, you're also getting those natural red light waves. And then take as many steps as you can to reduce your exposure to artificial, especially blue light at night. So that means, as we talked about, like the fake light doesn't have all of those different balancing, waves of light that we actually need for our biology. So those were the tips that they gave. But again, if you haven't signed up, it's never too late, and it would be really great to see you on there. So I wanted to read, first of all, a scripture. This is from the book of John, and it's chapter 1, and the first four verses. Okay, this is from the Amplified Version. In the beginning, before all time, was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God himself. He was present originally with God. All things were made and came into existence through him, and without him was not even one thing made that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Think about that. That's very interesting, because when it says in the beginning before all time was the Word, the Amplified actually says Christ. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God himself. And then at the end it says everything that came into existence was made through him, and not anything that was made didn't come through him. And it was life that was in him, and the life was the light of men. Interesting, huh? So I have this book, another good one from the library that I'll probably buy. It's called Luminous Life by Jacob Liberman. And it's how the science of light unlocks the art of living. Some of it's kind of hooey, but just bear with it, because there's some really cool scientific things in here. And of course, some of it's theoretical science, but still, it just gets our mind moving. And when you read these kinds of things along with what scripture talks about light is, it becomes really kind of mind-blowing. All right, so I'm going to read you a passage from the first chapter, and we'll start here. Light is made up of photons, and it is believed that some subatomic particles are composed of photons, which are the fundamental building blocks of what we call matter or reality. Photons are formless, invisible, and without attributes. They have no mass, weight, or electrical charge, and thus cannot be directly perceived or measured. Interesting. This is why we never truly see light, and yet everything we see, hear, smell, and touch is made of photons. According to American polymath and author Walter Russell, Not only is seeing a sensation of feeling light waves through our eyes, but hearing is a sensation of feeling light waves through our ears. Hearing and then tasting and smelling are also sensations of feeling light waves reacting upon mouth and nostrils. Okay, remember in my last video, I was talking about all this crazy stuff about how we have melanin in between all of our senses, in between our skin and our senses. There's melanin that's in our nose, it's in our ears, it's in our eyes, parts of our brain, other organs. Anyway, this is kind of related to that because what it really does is it picks up. Remember, I was saying melanin stores light. Well, it's like a semiconductor, it picks up light and it basically can also translate it. So, light is essentially information, and our different senses decipher it. So, isn't that wild? Okay, I'm going to read on. David Bohm took things a step further when he stated, all matter is frozen light. The quantum reality Bohm describes is founded on a simple principle. Light and life are the same energy in two different states of existence, form or matter, and formless, which is light. In its formed or frozen state, light energy composes all the matter in the universe, everything we see, touch, and measure. Bohm's statement refers to the transformation of light into matter, how light becomes life. Its potential energy, described by Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared. What is just as important, however, is how life or matter can once again become light. Okay, so bear with this here. You might be able to more easily picture the seamless interplay between the form and the formless if you think of plants and how they are guided and transformed by light through their life cycle. And then I'm going to skip down to this miraculous process of a plant being in the right place at the right time facilitates the process of photosynthesis, which we talked about before, whereby sunlight bonds with carbon dioxide and water to create sugar, the essential fuel that powers organic systems. When humans and animals consume plants, that bond is dissolved once again, dividing sugar into carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide is then eliminated via the lungs and perspiration, etc., leaving only light within the organism. So we're back to light. It started with light, it ends with light. In essence, we live on sunlight. Wow. So think about that for a minute. This is getting pretty heavy. So if we live on sunlight, then we need to understand the importance of its information. So that information, we don't want just one message continuing on and on and on, right? So like if you look at the full spectrum of the sun, all those different thousands of different wavelengths are different messages. They're signaling the 30 trillion cells in our body, telling them what time of day it is, what they need to do, how they need to produce, and what they need to eliminate. So it's about energy, it's about detoxification, all those processes. It's also our hormones. Sunlight on our skin, especially the UV rays, actually directly affect dopamine and serotonin. And you're probably somewhat familiar with those because most of us know, they're like the motivational and the happy hormones. Well, dopamine especially actually is in all of our movements. So people who suffer from things like Parkinson's and they have movement disorders, that's because of a breakdown of dopamine. Well, it actually turns out it's because they don't have the melanin in their brain and retina anymore to translate the messages. So you need that translator in your skin, the melanin. So there's two things that sunlight does. It helps produce melanin, and then it helps the melanin do its job, which is to decipher the information that goes to all of our cells. So that's a pretty important thing to think about. Well, sunlight does more than two things, but related to melanin, it does two major things. But there's also another one. So I'm going to say three now. And that one is that it splits water. Melanin is able to help split water to make energy. So I think that's enough to think about for one day. Again, we can go ahead and sign up for the 21-day CRD challenge if you haven't already. I'd love to see you on there. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.